Someone called me and like, have you checked your husband's status? I said, what happened? He said, go and check your husband's status. And I went and I checked his status. He was just saying, I'm not doing this again. I can no longer take it. I think I should end everything.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Dexter's Bridge Show. This is a sequel from the past episode where I had this guest. By the way, I never talked about their profile because it would take a full show to talk about what they've achieved. Interestingly, as life takes them through the detours and the rigors of the rough, bumpy roads, they pick things as they travel along. So they've become very resourceful people. Mr. Emeka Dibeli himself is a TEDx speaker, is a youth development expert. You can check his LinkedIn profile and see everything about him. And the wife, Mrs. Pamela, is a youth development expert, also education consultant, student in business, and many other things. You can check their profiles out and know that these are no mean people. So their story continues. Before we ended the last episode, he talked about his stint with COVID and the complications that follow. So let's open on that note, Mr. Emeka. You mentioned something about COVID, and let's hear that story.
Yeah, 2020, that year.
That year for everybody.
We're busy at work, doing normal things, and we had some visitors at the office.
Okay.
And as they left my office, we started hearing that all of them were testing positive for COVID. So it was inevitable for us that were exposed to them to get tested. So we went for our tests, and out of about 13 of us, 11 of us were positive. And we had to be isolated immediately because it was more like that exposure was a crisis point. And because we're in government, they need to ensure that everybody was contained properly. So I had to isolate with my family, because I insisted I isolate with them. So while they were treating me to get better, I had to treat them as well to either prevent or manage any exposure. Yeah. So after the first 14 days with treatments and everything, we went back for tests again, and every other person was now negative except two of us. And I had to go back into isolation again. On the second phase of isolation, I noticed that there were some periods where I just stand up and I have dizzy spells, and I was having this constant migraine headache that goes down to the back of my neck, my shoulder. It was very, very inconveniencing, and I went to a pharmacy close to my house, and the pharmacist said, let me check my BP. So when he checked my BP was 180, 130.
Whoa!
And I was like, no. He said, number one, he should be worried. He said, but he's more worried for the lower.
Yes, the diastolic value. Yeah.
The lower value showed him that something was not okay with my heart.
With your heart.
I needed to go and check it. So when I finished my isolation period, I went to go and check. On going for the check, the first thing the doctor asked me was, have you had an accident before? I said no. He said, did you used to fight? I said no. He said, did anybody hit you on your chest? I said, no, what's the problem? He said, there's an injury on your heart. He said, you also have first degree arterial ventricular block, and you have a sinus arrhythmia. Then my heart was slightly enlarged. He said, okay, let's go and run some other tests. So I had to go and run some other tests. They found out that my liver was slightly enlarged. I had crystals in my urethra and all that. So by the time they were done, they were like, I need to just start a treatment. It was an emergency. So we started the treatment. Everything was going well for the first 8 weeks. Then I noticed I started having one very bad cough. And it was COVID season. So it was now seeming like I had COVID again. Only for me to find out that one of the drugs they gave me, I was reacting to it. So I was told to stop it. I was stopping that one, they gave me another replacement. Then noticed that the migraine headaches were not stopping. And they now told me that the diclofenac I was taking was sodium diclofenac. I needed to change the potassium diclofenac. Yeah. So all this was going on. Then I started feeling better. In feeling better and trying to return back to work, if I go to work for 2-3 days, I return back and I'm sick for a week or two. So I went back to the doctor and they recommended some extra tests. Going for the extra tests, the doctor was like, your heart, I cannot explain that. There's so much not okay with the heart. The chambers of the heart, the blood pumping, so much was not okay. So he changed my medication entirely and gave me a new set of medications. The new medications they gave me were working their work because the BP was getting down, but I wasn't feeling better. So they now recommend you need to be referred to Lagos so that they can do a comprehensive test and now check you. So they were mentioning hospitals ranging from Reddington to this to that. So as I mentioned all the hospitals, the challenge was now raising money to be able to go to Lagos.
Because the
Because
bills are
number one,
humongous.
I wouldn't be able to go to Lagos alone. I'll need to go with my wife in case anything had to happen. Secondly, our kids are very small, so I need to factor them. The entire process was not easy, but I kept having friends, alumni come to my rescue at every season. And within this period, I had close friends who were dying from the same thing
That you were
I
currently
was currently going through. So I finally was able to go to Lagos at a point, and I went to a particular hospital, and when I got there, the doctor ran his series of tests, and the series of tests alone got up to more than 1 million in one day.
Yeah.
And that was just tests. So we did about 48 tests. By the time we were done, the doctor looked at me and said, your heart is very weak. He said the drugs you were given to bring down your BP
Was
did not
endangering your
handle
heart.
the causative factor. Rather, they weakened your heart strength. He said so he needs to get the heart back to life while he's trying to find out how to manage what was leading to the complication. While doing that, he now knows that the level of exposure I've had to drugs was making me get to a point where I was close to being diabetic courtesy of my heart treatments, not because of inability to break down sugars or the other. So I had to go for another set of tests with some people that were running experiments on how heart treatments were leading to diabetes in Lagos State University Teaching Hospital and all that. So everything was going on side by side, and it was gulping its own. Well, at a point, we were spending as much as 480k on drugs every 4 to 6 weeks. And I wasn't getting better. The more I took the drugs, the sicker I felt. Then when I didn't take the drugs, my BP would be crazy. There was a particular time they had to use the ABPM machine on me, and in my sleep, my BP was 230 over 180. And we're like, in your state of rest, now how can your BP be like this? That's what's going on. Then at another time, the doctor looked at me and said, I don't know what you're doing. Say, but if you are serving God, hold him well. If you are a Muslim, hold Allah well. If you are an idol worshipper, hold your juju well. I said, why? He said, because you don't look like what we are reading. He said the symptoms they are saying are not the kinds for people that should be walking around and coming back to the. They're supposed to be for people that are preparing to pack up. I'm not okay. Say, but I don't look like what they are getting back. So I should just hold that
whatever
God
it is that you're doing
that is giving me that sustenance and life. While all this was going on, I was having constant pain. I couldn't sit like this for more than 30 minutes. If I sit, the pain goes from my head down to the back of my neck, my shoulder, draws me down, comes down this way. The pain is not the kind of pain you want to reach for your enemy. So I felt better when I was lying down than when I had to stand for a while, but I can't stand for too long because of fatigue. I couldn't do road trips because sitting down in a vehicle for long, I couldn't recline the chair was torture. There was even a particular day I went for school run, I was trying to get back home, I lost sensations in my hand, and they said it was cardiac arrest, it was near stroke. It just kept happening back to back. But many a times we look at ourselves and we just know that it is not based on this level of, because even the doctors at the point were losing clue as to how
How to manage your case,
the process. So all that panned out, and there was even a period where we couldn't even afford the drugs anymore. And I had to take communion every day for like a month or two, just to be able to let it be that something was going into your system to manage the heart condition and all that. But one other thing I would let people know is that when you are not feeling fine, it's not every time that God heals you on the spot. Sometimes he gives the people that are treating you clues on how to manage you.
I like that statement.
Sometimes he puts you on a pathway that leads you to recovery. Do you understand? Because I noticed it, because the more I met doctors, the more I noticed an improvement. But it wasn't because they were doctors. It was because he kept moving me from this person to the next person that will handle the next
Yes.
thing. And when you meet them, even if they are nasty to everybody, when they come to me, somehow they are accommodating, they are helpful, and they give you results at that time. Do you understand? So we did that to the point where we now had to finally have a procedure where they had to clear my valves using catheter through the veins to the hearts. And after that procedure, my life just took a leap. It was like I just came alive again. You know, that kind of when you walk out of your body and come back. But the periods in between were not interesting. There were mornings you wake up and you're in so much pain. You can't explain the pain. The only way you can let someone know that you are in pain is when the tears are coming out, because you can't even scream. Do you understand? Then they tell you not to eat. The things they tell you to eat, you can't afford. You are in crisis. Then even trying to afford the ones you can eat, because you are buying drugs, you can't even now eat. Then you now remember that you have a wife who has stopped working because she's taking care of you. You have children who are looking up to you, and you don't want them to have any feel of the pressure you are going through. And you have to make ends meet somehow, but you can't.
So you're in the midst of all this.
I felt helpless most of the time, but somehow she makes me feel she's strong, though I know she's not. Then she kept a positive atmosphere in the house throughout the entire period. So it helps. Sometimes you see my kids, they'll look at me, "That is your chest paining you?" I'll say yes. Say, "Don't worry, God will heal you." I didn't tell them, I didn't teach them that, but somehow you could tell that they pick up from our conversations, and they were able to.
The values have been transferred.
Come to that part, and then you also have this one of people that you feel they should be able to muzzle up and take charge of the entire situation on your behalf, knowing that you are feeble and you can't do it, and they're missing. Then some other people you don't expect from anywhere show up and take up the responsibility as though it was theirs, and they don't stop until they see results. So those scenarios played over and over again till we got to a point where I didn't need to be in the hospital every day. I didn't need to be in the hospital every week. I didn't need to have to take the drugs every day, because it even got to a point now where the drugs came in, and instead of making the BP normal, and I had low BP to show that the heart was now okay.
Yes, so
I shouldn't put the heart on that.
compensating,
So I could really see that it pays to have the right things around you when you are not feeling fine. Like my wife would say, people that go, what makes them go is the fact that they don't have anything to keep them back here. There were days when I just felt, God, I still have a lot I've not released, and I wanted just one more moment. Then even from the sick bed, I'll do Zoom calls, do Zoom meetings. I'll speak there with all energy, and they'll think everything is okay while I'm trying to just be there. So it wasn't all interesting, but one thing was definite. Number one, we saw God increase our finances. We saw God increase our opportunities. Within the period I was on the sick bed, I managed a federal program in Delta State. From the sick bed, I didn't leave my house. So you could tell that God did not just step aside. He was there throughout the entire process. It wasn't easy, but the family stayed positive. I had friends that stayed and kept reminding me of what was supposed to be there. My pastor would always call and pray. He knew I couldn't come to church anymore because going to church, if I sit down in church for a particular period, because of the pain, I'll have to. So I was barely in church. I couldn't even go out for normal social gathering. I couldn't. So it was just me, my house, supposed to be depressed. But as depression signs came in their seasons, there was just this way to just survive. But it wasn't like we're all bubbly. Not like we're all bubbly, but God was just there, faithfully helping in these things. There was one she experienced, and she told the story. I think she tells the story better, not me.
Okay, before you tell that particular story, okay, tell the story, then I'll ask you what I want to ask. Or before then, you tell the story, then you tell us, how were you able to manage the emotion that the possibility of losing your husband at any point? Or did it ever occur to you that you could be a widow, young widow? Did it occur to you? How were you able to muster the strength to go through all these things? Because oftentimes you might not be the first-hand sufferer, but the emotional burden of having to watch a loved one go through a trouble you can't do anything significant about. How are you able to manage all those? And tell the story that he's talking about.
Oh, okay. So, when he's talking about he did this, people around him, the fate that you had to go through, it wasn't all rosy. Like I was saying, there was a time when I was coming back from work, and then someone called me and like, have you checked your husband's status? I said, what happened? He said, go and check your husband's status. And I went and I checked his status. He was just saying, I'm not doing this again. I can no longer take it. I think I should end everything.
Oh,
oh wow. I saw it. I was like, okay, what's going on? Funny enough, I was calm. I don't know why. I was calm because it's a knowing and it's a covenant with God. I'm not going to lose my husband like this. So it's not possible. That's not what you told us. That's not the plan. So him wanting to give up at this moment, you better find a way to remove yourself, because I know the moment I break down and I'm not able to show strength in front of him, even if I'm scared, it gives him more room to say, I'm done. Because I tell people, when somebody has decided that they are tired, no matter how much faith you have for that person, it is hard.
Of course.
For that person to remain. At that point, that's when they say they are
gone.
The Bible
says that the spirit of a man helps his infirmity.
Exactly.
That's what the Bible says.
Exactly. Because I was saying similar thing happened to my mom. We talked about how my mom passed away before my wedding. My mom just had a funny scenario of when she was in a dream and then somebody put something in her mouth. Next day she was crying, her stomach went to hospital. From your intestine ruptured, they did one operation, they did 5 operations. The intestine kept cutting every time that the doctors were like, what is going on? It seemed like I don't know what is going on. And finally the doctor came to a conclusion that her intestine was going to be out of her stomach for the rest of her life. So she was going to live on colostomy bags. So you are stooling, everything is going into the bag, you'll be empty. And immediately my mom heard it. She was like, she cannot do this. And she cannot afford to live her life with her intestine outside her body, that she is not taking it. The moment she mentioned she was not taking it, that was when my mom left and she died. So I had that understanding that the person, whoever is going through a situation, you have to want to live. Because sometimes we question ourselves when things like that happen and you be like, I prayed, but God, I prayed, we fasted. What of the person that was going through the thing? Did the person want to stay? So that is one faith we should learn to build in people. Their ability to want to stay is what will keep them, more than you that is praying that they should be alive.
Of course.
And so when I got there, I had to put up that face. So I just called some of his close friends to, people should call me. So people that saw, some of his friends that were around, they came to the house, they spoke with him, they prayed with him. Other people called and they prayed with him, they stayed. Just be careful the kind of friends you keep, because they would help you. There's some people that will sit and they will laugh, say, guys, they worry, you are dying now. And the person can from there die. And that's when you start regretting. but they stood by and he was able to go through that phase. So there are phases like that, and you just know that you have to walk through it. Now, possibility of whether you be a widow. There's nobody that will not think about it. Obviously, that's the truth. But again, your ability to counter negative thoughts immediately they come.
Yes.
Is one thing that helps. If I get that feeling, I immediately cancel it and I'm vocal about it. I say it. Just ignoring it like this or walking away is not enough for you, because for the fact that the thought came, something is speaking, and you have to speak as a higher authority to cancel whatever it is that is coming. Because the moment that seed is sown and you leave it, before you know what is happening. So there are times over and over again I have to consciously say no. As in, if it's not to come and say, God, no, it's not even possible. Like, I'm not called to be a widow at this age. Like, what have we even done in life? Come to think of it, we have never even achieved what we plan to achieve. We have plans written, and then when I say, Father Lord, I cannot raise my children alone. I cannot raise them alone. It's not possible. It's not even good self, because the two parents have to raise them to become normal, healthy children. So I drop these things, and you always have to have something as a backing when you are your strong reasons. That's what they tell you. Say, bring forth your strong reasons. What are your strong reasons? That's when I get to understand sometimes from these sowings, for these givings that he does, it's everywhere, whether negative spirituality, positive. There is something you have to hold when trials come. What is it that you have done that I should be able to leave you to say pass and go? So those are things I have to bring forth and say, Father Lord, it is not going, no. If not for me, because I'm learning this process of understanding the kind of person he is. I'm not that kind of person that I'm learning, but if not for me, because of him. He tells me of visions, of dreams he has given, of words that God has told him. And I'm like, God, you have said this one to your son. So at this point, what's going on? So those are things that I get to encourage myself to say, no, it cannot end here. It's not possible that this is the end. And we are here, so it's not the end.
When Jesus cursed the fig tree, the Bible said, and seeing a fig tree afar off, green with leaves, Jesus approached the fig tree, hoping he would get fruit from the tree. And when he got to the tree, he found nothing but leaves. And the Bible says something very instructive, that Jesus answered the fig tree. It means the fig tree said something to Jesus, and Jesus answered the fig tree. The fig tree's utterance to Jesus was not vocal to human hearing, but Jesus vocalized his answer to the fig tree. Life speaks to you, and your faith as a Christian, to say the least, is voice activated. Faith is voice activated. Don't leave any threat unreplied. Yeah. If someone says, I'll deal with you, reply. Yes, you are called to be meek, to be calm, and to be gentle, but never leave any threat unreplied. When life threatens you with fear, with failure, with whatever it is, vocalize it. The Bible says in Colossians that let the word of God dwell in you richly. It's out of the richness of that deposit of God's word in you that you reply in life. You don't go to pick up the Bible when life happens. Then the word on your inside starts replying. You have to vocalize it. And your Christian faith is a personal thing. That is why I have pity for those who catch cruise about everything. You are catching cruise. You say things belittling your faith, and you say you are catching cruise. Are you normal? Listen, your angels are not logical. They don't know when you are serious or when you are joking. They pick the words from your mouth. And the Bible says that God will judge every idle statement. If you're a child of God, you're a Christian, you have to believe what you're doing. You have to, that's what you call emotional integrity. Believing what you say and saying what you believe. Don't be a Christian who is dilly-dallying back and forth with the things that should matter, and you're living a careless life. And I'm coming back to that. You see, we've expunged for better or for worse from the marriage vow. But life didn't expunge it from reality. So you stand with your husband or your wife for better or for worse. Like I say, God didn't promise you a trouble-free life. He promises you victory. He says you already won. He says, Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation. But don't be bothered. I've already overcome the world. But tribulations will come along the line. What I like most about this is that you are putting out your testimony out there to strengthen people. Because as Christians, our testimonies are very important tools. And I'm excited you're able to come on this show and tell it all what you had to struggle with and how God came through for you, which is what Dexter's Breakthrough is all about. So final word, your advice. Somebody's going through what you've gone through, less than what you've gone through, or maybe more than what you've gone through. What's your word for them?
First is you need to own up to yourself and hold yourself responsible for whatever decisions you have to make with life. Because you don't have anybody to blame for who you become. You only have yourself to blame. Because you had every choice not to become that person. That's first. Secondly, when it comes to the marriage thing, understand that your next individual beyond yourself is you and your spouse. So holding yourself and your spouse as an institution, separate from in-laws, relatives, is very important, because in the long run, everybody will go and sort out their own homes. So whatever fractures in your home or whatever is solid in your home is your responsibility. Then finally, however the challenges come, one thing that you should remember is that at a time on the earth, it was without form and void. But there was God. He was there before that happened. He was there after that happened. Let God be there. Irrespective of what life throws at you, ensure that one thing that you don't miss out on is having God with you. Because whatever is missing or whatever you lose within the period of trials, with God, there's always a perfect future. With God, there's always this guarantee that all things will work and end for your good.
Perfect.
So trust that process. Leave the destination on its own. Focus on every phase of the journey. Because that's where your strength is built. And that is what has made me survive to where I am now and what is keeping me going. Thank you.
It's in the journey. Pamela.
Yes. Okay. So for me, one thing that I know and I talk to God about is, you're not going to give me a challenge that I cannot bear. You're not going to give me a difficulty that I cannot overcome. So when I see some things that happen, I'm like, God, if you are sure that I can go through this phase, let it continue. If you know that I cannot go through it, please, at this point, carry it so that I will not sin. Because different things comes with this thing, like things that can actually shake you to your bone, can shake your marriage, can shake your belief in God, different things, even your personality that you have built. Because there are times you have to go to talk to people that you never thought in your life you would ever talk to.
Yeah.
And then people bring different suggestions to you. So, but at that point, know your God for yourself and know what drives you at every given time of your life. People claim that they can just live life. It's not possible. No matter who you are, whether you are Christian, Muslim, pagan, have something that you hold that pushes you through life. And there's always a higher being. Whether you like it or not. Even if you are arguing that there is nobody, there is no supernatural, it's because there is. That's why you have an argument. Look into that and always have that belief that everything that happens to you is for a reason. You have a lesson to live for the generation after. Are they going to learn from your experiences, or you are going to drain them, or they would not even know that somebody like you ever crossed the earth? Which part? Ask yourself these questions, then know how exactly you live your life at every given time.
See, the presence of challenges doesn't mean the absence of God. there is Jesus, even through the waiting, the rains, the storm, the highs and the lows. He always walks that road with you. Like I said, he didn't promise us a stress-free journey. He promised us certainty of arriving at our destination. Very important. Like he said, when the earth was without form and void, God was still there. So God is always with you. Never despair. Well, thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Emeka. It's been a pleasure having you guys. And I'm sure you people are reeling with many lessons. Yes, that's how we overcome from other people's testimony. I'll see you on the next show. This is still Dexter's Breed Show. And don't stop following, liking, watching, sharing. And if you have a great story, we can't wait to have yours next. I'll see you. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I believe you learned a lot from it. There is more. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on other social media platforms so you can see more interesting content and let others see the same thing that you have seen. Thank you.